Welcome to the 25th Annual Albert City, Iowa Threshermen and Collectors Show. This video will show you several of the highlights of the three-day event held every August, including activities such as threshing, plowing, tractor pull, crafts, sawmill, shingle mill, various horse activities, blacksmithing, flour milling, broom making, homemade ice cream, scale size equipment demonstrations, schoolhouse activities, quilt show, toy show, doll show, antique car display, gas engine display, antique tractor display, carpenter shop, and much more. The Threshermen and Collectors Show began when Carl Lind and Keith Sunblad decided to show their children how threshing used to be done.
We feature old things. That's the idea. You know, we have a little saying that if you don't know where you've been, you can't tell where you're going. So we're trying to relive what it was like 50 years ago plus. And so that people have an idea, especially young folks, have an idea of what their forefathers went through to establish a home, to provide a living, and to raise a family. And it was nothing but sweat and hard work. And I think we've lost some of that, and so we're trying to renew the appreciation, or perpetuate the appreciation of what our forefathers did here in the Midwest.
During this three-day event, visitors can watch, remember, or learn how farmers before the early 1940s threshed their oats. The first event was just for the neighbors in the early fall of 1971. In 1975, the organization became incorporated. Gas engines range from small, medium, or large to huge in horsepower. The Corliss engine is a 100 horsepower engine weighing 25 tons. The massive flywheel measures 10 feet in diameter. Small and huge, quiet and noisy, describes the lineup of the gas engines in roped-off areas.
Well, so I guess every year the Albert City Threshermen Collector Show always features some type of a line of tractor. This year it's the Hartpar Oliver. Tell us what we've got on hand here about at the show featuring the Hartpar Oliver.
Okay, the Hartpar line, the earliest piece we've got here is a 1903 stationary engine that was built by Hartpar. And also the oldest tractor is a 1915 3060 Hartpar, which was called the Old Reliable because it was a very reliable piece of equipment.
Tell us a little bit about the history of the Hartpar Oliver.
Mr. Hart and Mr. Parr met at college in Madison, Wisconsin, and for a project they built a stationary engine that was oil cooled, and from there on they wanted to go into the wheel tractors, and they finally found some financing in Charles City, Iowa, and there they moved, and there's where the company just kept on moving up.
And how many tractors do you have on display here then?
Oh, what is it, about 45 Oliver and Hartpar tractors.
Tell us about your own collection. What are some of the more unique Hartpar Olivers that you have?
Okay, the oldest one I have, and the one I cherish, is that our neighbor that thrashed for us years ago when I was a child was a 1929 1836 Hartpar, and that's what I have. That's my oldest one, and I go on up to my latest is a 1958 Super 44.
How did you acquire your 1925?
Let's see, the 1836 you mean? Or
sure.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I bought that from a lady here at Albert City that her and her husband had it, and her husband passed away, and she decided to dispose of it, so I purchased it from her, and I had been looking one for a long time. My dad's very first tractor was an Oliver or a Hartpar, and I have one identical to it at home, an 1827 with a single wheel in front. It's a 1930 model.
And from how far have all these Oliver tractors come here to the Albert City show?
Oh, boy, I wouldn't say how.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's telling us what we're going to do, elevator or the...
You've got a farm all, I think, up
Hart car on it, which we featured this year. And there's also a videotape that is being offered of the threshing vehicle. It sells for $19.95 and then $3 postage. So if you'd like one, stop in and order it.
With the pounding sound of the anvil and the firing forge, the blacksmith shop becomes a part of history. Several amateur blacksmithers come and take their turn demonstrating blacksmith techniques. The 1879 District 5 Coon Center School was moved to the site in 1977. The Svenska Stuga is the little red house with window boxes, which is a replica of a Swedish cottage. Stugas, referred to the working class home or common man's dwelling, had a certain personality all its own. The dollhouse is a special treat for any girl, young or old. A variety of old and newer dolls, doll clothes, and accessories are arranged in the rooms of the house. The original broom machine in the broom factory is around 116 years old. Broom corn, derived from a sorghum plant, is the main ingredient required in the making of brooms.
This one you don't want to make it too big of a mistake.
That's right. Yeah, right.
Well, hi, Sharon.
How you doing? Good. You had a big birthday yesterday? Yeah.
Are we still partying today?
I didn't party yesterday.
Well, then we better party today, right?
Mother didn't even get her birthday gift out here yesterday. How's that? Yahoo! I got that roll of film with them. I've been trying to do that for quite a while. Oh, now I got that all done. Oh, we never got it. No, they haven't come yet. Have you heard anything from them, Alan?
What's that?
Our new picture books for the church.
No. Okay, Marcia, ready for you.
I thought about him. Hello, Murtis. How are you? Your favorite thing to do, gardening, huh? This weather. Well, I like to garden. Okay. I like to garden. So, he behaved himself? Elvin? Yeah. Oh, he's been pretty good. Yeah, I was just going to say that. How's the air conditioning in here?
Yeah, right.
Oh, I tell you, we got it good. We're going to get
That's why you're short, saying. No, I think they were. We use this when we lay brick and we make them white.
The flour mill is a stone ground mill, so it can grind wheat, rye, and corn. Stone mills do their work by feeding grain into the eye or center of the stationary stone. As the grain progresses between the stationary and revolving stones, it is forced through furrows cut into the stone with a certain pattern and symmetry. a variety of crafts such as stitchery, wood pieces, doll making, sweatshirts, pottery, jewelry, stained glass work, and much more have become a big part of the show.
Why don't you just email me and do you hand piece or do you machine piece?
Yeah, me too.
It's on the pattern.
I've been working on a...
Have you done any of this?
Baba, there it is. Everything here we find.
Oh, that is nice.
When the curl stops where it's supposed to stop, a lot of them want to come on up above the eye. So those are the best.
As a reminder, yes, and I want to remind the name of the waivers and closing time will be on. At 10 o'clock.
About 14 minutes. Watch me listening to it.
Quilts, embroidery, crocheting, tatting, and other pieces of handiwork can be seen in the White House. There is also a rug loom. The craft of weaving has been practiced throughout the world for thousands of years. The weaver raises and lowers the harness of a floor loom by pressing foot pedals called treadles. This action frees the weaver's hand to pass the shuttle rhythmically through the shed.
Yeah. They have really good. A lot of them? Well, you know, yes, Mr. Never always know.
Well, no, I think they have a couple.
Never knew her long enough.
Yeah, that's
the way yeah, it's a night. I'll be back. I gotta...
Yeah, well, she didn't say. She just said that, you know, that was more touchy.
Yes, that's all. That's our next
Ladies, like to buy a chance on the quilt? We'll mail it to you. $1. It's burgundy. It doesn't show up the color as much. It's got beautiful shading. Yeah, it is. And the backside is beautiful. You know, it's all.
Yeah, you can feel it by the backside. Look at that apple one. Apple flag. That's pretty, isn't that pretty? Though?
Nice backs are so pretty. You can use that side.
Oh, yeah, right.
Around your face.
And they're really,
Oh, it's very pretty. And you can use it on another side too.
that's something that makes it really
Jack, and that was another girl. I think it was when they knew how to cut, you know. I think I learned it in school, I guess. And my husband, knew the description. I think that every boy or girl were tagging at that time.
While visiting the show, if you feel a little weary from all the walking around, hop on a trolley or a people wagon pulled by horses and let them do the walking for you.
No, most of them would take over the Waverly. Come on. Linda, Lisa. We go to Waverly with quite a few of them. I prefer to go private because you can represent them so much better and you keep track of them, and I just prefer that. Did you want on? Go.
Also, drivers of the cars that are to be in the parade, go to your cars now.
How you doing? Sue, stay up there. Whoa.
The shiftless Swedes are very popular, especially on a hot day. People not only enjoy the taste of the good ice cream, but enjoy watching it being made the hydromatic way. Old-time kettle corn is also a treat for visitors. The sugar corn is not caramel corn, yet it is sweet. As the popcorn starts cooking, white sugar is added. At the Albert City Threshermen and Collectors Show are some who enjoy copying the big machines. It becomes a hobby, and each piece of machinery built is a challenge for the builder. A large crowd always seems to surround the sawmill. Huge logs hum through the mighty blade. Carl Sundblad worked in sawmills in Longview, Washington from 1929 to 1930. Sundblad was a native of Iowa, and after working in the sawmills, he returned to his home state. He always dreamed of having his own sawmill someday, and when the show started, he purchased one. Ash, cotton, and maple logs are used, and it is time-consuming to get it set so it will operate properly.
We're getting up to 250 right there. How many down? We're 250. 250? Pretty close. And next, this is followed by the Lorenz fire truck, which is an old 1931 Chevy. I'm sure it put out a lot of fires in the Lorenz area, and the boys have restored it, and it's looking mighty good today.
There's no number on the truck.
And this is followed by our special this year. The Threshermen were gifted this 1928 Ford AA truck, and we spent from January to June renovating it, and it was given to us by the Waldo Brown family. And Lorraine Brown is riding, and son Bob is driving, and this is a dandy old truck. It's got a 2-speed in it, and a 3-speed transmission with it over and under. And it's a dandy old truck, and it's sounding mighty good today. You can get your hauling done. Here's our parade marshals this year, Keith Sundblad and Carl Lynn, grand marshals. It's those guys' fault that we're having this fair today. Here's a 1969 Mercury Marquis. And it's from Greenville, Iowa, Amos Verley. Here's the 1951 Ford Victoria, Everett and Verley Amos, again of Greenville. It's a classy old buggy, isn't it? This is a 1910 Model T under restoration. This includes the driver, John Deere. He's under restoration too. However, we think there's very little hope there for the driver. Yeah, he thought the parade was next week. What are you doing here this week? Yeah, but I enjoy blubbering a lot. Thank you, John. Nice to have you here. And the Storm Lake Serpaki Club's got a lot of vehicles here today. Here's one of them, I think. No, this is Spencer Group.
Spencer.
Iowa Great Lakes. Well, I got everything wrong. 1966 Ford Mustang Convertible. Darlene Prather, Spencer. Here's a 1948, 49 Ford.
429.
We'll get it pretty quick. Oldsmobile. Nice 1963 Cutlass. Claude Tolan of Fonda. Nice to have you at our parade this year. Here's a Model A, 1930 model, Terry Applegate of Pocahontas. Got suicide doors on it. Notice those back doors that open from the front. Here's a 1928 Model A, Horace Adams, Gilmore City, Iowa. Thanks for coming over. Here's Irwin Jansen in his 1952 Cadillac. He's from Palmer. They made them with big iron in those days, didn't they? Look at the size of that vehicle. Here's from Humboldt, Marvin Grebner, 1962 Mercury Meteor. Only produced in 1962 and 63. This car has 195,000 miles on it. Here's a dandy little Model A Ford pickup, a 1929 Elwin Hodges of Humboldt. And it's got horn and all. Thanks for coming over. Notice the radio aerial on the back corner there. I doubt if that's standard equipment. Charles Woodland of Palmer has this 1931 Chevrolet 5-window rumble seat coupe. I used to have one of those when I was a kid. Did my sparking in one of those. And it works. Here's a 1964 Ford Thunderbird convertible, or what they call a retractable convertible. And daughter Karen on this side belongs to Carl Lind. And a real nice looking car. And here comes 1956 Corvette Convertible, driven by Eddie and Clarice Aguelo of Phoenix, Arizona. No, Tucson, Arizona.
Come back on that, please.
And they come up here to get warmed up, I believe. Ron Blomker of Humboldt with this 1960 Ford Galaxy 500 convertible. Here's the last one-seater T-Bird that was made. And it's driven by Dave Hansen of Rochester, Minnesota. And it's owned by Carl Lind and his mother here on the near side from Houston, Minnesota. Welcome. Glad to have you here again this year. Here's a 47 Willys Jeep, a CJ2A. And Carla and John Brown from South Dakota. And the whole gang. And here's a Willys Overland Jeepster, 1948 model. Bob and Janet Rosenbrook of Storm Lake have this 73 Chevy station wagon. And here's another T-Bird.
Where you at? 472.
Bob Reinhardt from Pocahontas with a 63 T-Bird. Here comes Miss Pigtails and Miss Pork. Chuck Eddy with Carly Goots and Steph Holgrave.
Hey,
Chuck is our sheriff and a car collector. And here's a 1928 DeSoto sedan. Come out of Newell. Bill Morrow has this one. 28 DeSoto. There aren't too many of those around anymore.
464.
Jolene Johnson of Albert City driving this 1965 Ford Mustang. No, I don't believe she is.
With a question mark.
Well, anyways, her car. Here's Robert Johnson with, there she is. Oh, goodness, you can't, these women. Here's a 1959 Nash Metropolitan. I'll get it after a while. Here's this Dan Patton from Storm Lake with his 66 Ford Convertible, Mustang Convertible. Looking good today. Another Ford Convertible from Darrell Fisher from Gilmore City, a 1957 model. That's one of those retractable tops that were famous in their day. And, Randy Farr from Storm Lake with a 1969 Chevy Impala convertible.
498.
Lind of Storm Lake has this 1965. Oh, this isn't a Mustang, is it? No, it's not.
494. That's a Ford Fairlane, Victoria.
Yeah, it's a Ford Fairlane. Sorry about the error.
Beautiful car.
It's a dandy, isn't it?
495.
Circle 494. It's supposed to be 494.
And,
Ken Armstrong, this was right.
oh yeah, this is Ken Armstrong's Thunderbird.
496.
Storm Lake Serpaki Group. Here's a 65 Ford two-door hardtop. Marion Stafford of Lakeview, Iowa. Here's the upside-down bathtub we used to call them. This is the old Nash, 1950 Nash Ambassador. Lester Vaz of Galva. Thanks for coming up. Isn't that some classic? Here's another one of those Mustangs. Dean Lind from Storm Lake with the 55 Ford Mustang. He's also got a Crown Victoria. Here's a 55 Cadillac. Wilbur Tucker, Storm Lake, former mayor. It says the only car here wearing a bra. Figure that one out. Here's another, oh, this is a Dodge, yeah. Phil Baker of Early, Iowa, with a 1966 Dodge Charger, two-door hardtop. And Don Christie of Marathon has this 1948 Chevy Fleetmaster. Old Buick is all dialed up with the white sidewalls. 54 model, Bill Anderson of Alta. Here's a Cushman.
431.
Carl Lind owns this. It's a 1969 Cushman pickup with a 3-speed transmission. 1943 Studebaker. Nope, that's the Weasel. The next one. This is a 3/4-ton weapons carrier. And here comes the 1943 Studebaker.
453 is a card from Daniel.
Called a Weasel. Everett Danielson, the driver.
This is the one that she said something.
A Jeep. A 1952 M38. Terry King, Sioux City.
Hi, folks.
Here's another Jeep. Military vehicle.
453, got it.
Here's what they used to call a deuce and a half. 2.5-ton truck. From World War II. Called a GMC M135. Here's a new entry. He just came in this afternoon. A Dodge 4-wheel drive power wagon in 1941. Bob Robertson of Marathon. Just got the paint work done on that this morning. Don Hanson of Newell with a 1930 Chevy sedan.
No, this is Bob Carlson's Dodge.
Hey, this is Bob Carlson from Storm Lake with that beautiful looking Dodge pickup. Here comes Bob Loving with his Model T fuel delivery truck. This is the way we used to get our fuel, folks. Dump that into a 5-gallon bucket and put it in a barrel. Here's a 1-ton Chevrolet 1938 truck owned by Einar Lindstrom in this community, now owned by Bob Loving. This is Brownie McVeigh from Rolfe
I didn't get it all.
with his team of Belgians and the old Ottman Taylor water wagon. And he does a great job of tending the steam engines when they need water. So sorry about that. I'll sin no more. These are purchased. Yeah, Larry Clausen from Marcus owns this truck, and this old International was once owned by Melvin Nobla in this community with a corn sheller mounted on the back. And and shelled literally millions of bushels of corn in this community, as long as I can remember anyway.
Granddaughter there.
Here's Belle and Babe, a team of Perchins, owned by Claude Andy Tolan from Fonda, Iowa. Nice cart too, look at that. That is a dandy.
He made that, huh?
Here's one of the Threshermen's trolleys. The folks seem to enjoy. And we have a couple of mules and
a crisp. Lindgren.
Denny Lindgren, the driver.
That'll work. Okay.
Hart Par tractor, a 3060, and in its day that was really something else. Built over in Charles City, Iowa. Used for a lot on the road and out in the western country where they broke the prairie, in the wheat fields. Pretty big and clumsy for cornfields around here. But owned by Denny Powers from Ogden, Iowa. Thanks, Denny, for coming by. That's a real good unit.
These kids off that parade route over there, they're going to be running their toes over. 127.
Here's another one of Denny Powers tractors, a 1920 Ottman Taylor 3060, all fixed up. Fairbanks Morris, 1911. 15 horsepower on the drawbar, 25 on the belt. It's also owned by Dennis Powers. And it goes by, notice the unique radiator. There's no fan. It just pumps water over this screen, and Mother Nature's supposed to do the cooling. That's just got one cylinder in it, but it's a pretty big old can running back and forth in there.
Exchange student on this other tractor with what's it called? Okay, I don't know who she is.
Ted Schulte from Sac City. He and his dad own this old Hart Par. 2830, a 2850, excuse me, 1930 model. This tractor's been exhibited here ever since the show was on these grounds, and that's been somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 years, maybe 20 years.
Foreign exchange student, but we don't know where from.
And riding along is a foreign exchange student. We don't have her name, but welcome to our show. Here's Willis Lussman with his old 1536 Hart Par. Willis from Storm Lake, a 1929 model. And wife Lorna Lussman is with this 1955 Oliver Super 66 diesel. Ed and Donna Lorenz of Radcliffe, Iowa own this 1948 Oliver 66 and a 22B mower. And those were a popular mower in their day. And that one looks like it's still cut a mean swath.
Don't worry about it.
Marvin Manifold of Sioux Falls, South Dakota with a 19-something or other 88 Oliver. Excuse me, 880 Oliver. 880 Oliver. Here's a 1952 Oliver 66, owned by Willis Lussman again. Willis has got, I think, a half a dozen tractors here today. He, by the way, is responsible for lining up all these Olivers. It's been a great show. We enjoy them very much. And all this stuff just doesn't happen. Somebody has to grab the bull by the horns and make it work. Willis also owns this 1952 Oliver 77. Dan Heiser of Badger, Iowa, with the 1957 Oliver Super 77. And this 1970 Oliver 1750 diesel is my neighbor's tractor, Orville Ehlers, and I see it out in the field all the time, still doing its job, driven by son Orland. Here's a tractor coming up you don't see every day. Darwin McConkey of Alta has this 73 Oliver 2255, and it's got a Cat 3208 diesel engine in it. Sounds like $1 million. Dwayne Ehlers of Newell owns this 1974 Oliver 1365, driven by son Dan. Still used every day. We thought you might, since Oliver's been discontinued, you might enjoy seeing something like that. Here, Paul Rydell of Lakeview has this 1964 Oliver 1900 industrial tractor. Look at that. Got a Detroit engine in it. Here's a 59 Ferguson, Massey Ferguson, 98. Kent Peterman from Linton has this tractor. This was built 1959 by the Oliver Corporation. They produced about 500 of them, but they had a hard time selling them. Here's an outfit with a dandy paint job. That's a pretty tractor. Those Oliver colors are really attractive. Leo and Lyle Eason from Orange City with this 1952 Oliver 66 Standard. Here's a 1938-80 Oliver. Wayne Rassel of Lamar's owns this tractor. Carl Barber from Mapleton, Iowa, with a 1942 Oliver 80. Probably weren't too many of those built in 1942. Gene Barber has the next unit. He too is from Mapleton with a 37 Oliver Hard Par 70. John Rosenboom from Pomeroy with a 1947 Oliver 70. The old 70s were good old workhorses. A 6-cylinder engine, they always advertised smooth power. And compared to a 2-cylinder John Deere, they weren't kidding. Here's an 88 Oliver, a 1954 model. Mike Fransmeyer Rembrandt has this one with a 3-bottom Oliver plow. Must have been in the tractor pull with weights hanging on the side. There's Richard Larson with a 1936 Oliver 70. What happened to his umbrella when he needs it today? Here's a 37 Oliver Special. Only 22 are known to be left. Clay Drenth owns this one. From Alta. Howard and John Hubble of Owatonna, Minnesota always bring this 1918 Townsend down for the show. It's a 1225, 12 horsepower on the drawbar, 25 on the belt. And this tractor was built to look like a steam engine. and built to run like a gasoline tractor. And that's exactly what it is. And it runs real good. Always enjoy seeing this tractor. Here's Joe Beekman from Wayne, Nebraska, formerly Pocahontas, our neighbor over here with a 1923 Rumley 1220. And here's an old GP John Deere. Doug Beekman, driven by Mindy Beekman. 1926 GP. An old Oliver Clay Drenth of Alda has this 47 Oliver 50. Here's a tractor that we seldom see, a 1948 Oliver Industrial model, an Oliver 60. Blaine Boldy of Walcott, Iowa. He come a little ways. Thanks for coming over. That's clear on the other side of the state. Tim Tuttle of Aurelia has this Oliver Super 77. From early Iowa, Erie Callan brings this 1947 Oliver 60 to us. And Erie Callan also has this 49 Oliver 77. Oliver had a lot of innovations. They were ahead of their time with electric over their hydraulic, live power. They were a great tractor in their day, still are. Comes Rachel and Kevin Green from Charter Oak, Iowa, and they own this 1917 Case 50 horsepower steam engine.
Next one.
Thanks, guys. Tom and Mary Jordan from Knoxville come up. They've been up here the last few years with their half-scale case, all dressed up for the occasion, and that's a nice-looking unit. The Albert City fire truck, the old LaFrance, owned by the used by the Fort Dodge Fire Department at one time, and the boys got a hold of that, fixed it all up. Old LaFrance pumper truck, looking real good. Really appreciate the firemen coming out, providing ice water and everything else that we need. And here's the Teeman tractor that was built in this community in the early 1930s, owned by Dr. Kent Teeman of West Des Moines, Iowa, driven by Dad, Wayne Teeman from here in Albert City. And that's really a classy job. It's got a belt pulley and a power takeoff. Boy, that's a super unit. You bet. Model A engine.
Huh?
Here's Larry Johnson from Pomeroy with a 1959 garden tractor. It's handmade. Got some Model T parts. Model A parts. I think it needs a guidance system or something. Here's a Fortson Dextra, owned by Alan Fiala of Webster City, Iowa, driven by daughter Erin and Amanda. And that's an English-made Ford tractor. That one, I believe, is a 3-cylinder. A Ford Dextra. And here's a 110 John Deere. Nope, that's not right. Yeah, it is a 110 John Deere tractor, garden tractor.
Little Peterman boy.
And here's a Friday, owned by Steve and Rachel Rosenboom of Pomeroy. That's got a Chrysler engine and a Chrysler transmission and a truck rear end in it, keeping the factory looking like that. That happens to be an industrial model made in Hartford, Michigan. And here's an Alice Chalmers C, owned by Ed and Kevin Arnold out of Sioux City, Iowa, or excuse me, South Sioux City, Nebraska. 1943 Alice Chalmers C. And Ed and Kevin also have this 1948 Farmall H. It's all painted up Sunday best. And a good neighbor to the south, Carl Bellows, he brought his 1946 Minneapolis GTA, and he bought it new in 1946. Been driving it ever since. It's a 1948 Super A from Larrabee, Iowa. Darrell Dunkman owns this. Dukman. From Havelock, here comes Keith Horseman with a 1944 BN Farmall. I bet there weren't too many of those built in 1944 either. Charles Whitland of Palmer brings this 1939 RC Alice Chalmers. And they were really popular in their day. But the one coming up behind it is not so popular. It's made in England. And there's only 100 of these left in this country. An Alice Chalmers D272, and Charles Whitland owns this one also. Paul Paulson from Odo, Iowa has a 1959 John Deere 730 diesel. '44 B John Deere, Paul Paulson from Oto again. Don't know where they got these tractors in 1944. That was right in the midst of World War II, and they were really tough to find. Here's a 620, a 1957 620 John Deere, owned by Phil Roberts of Albert City, and he got Dad out today to drive it. How about that? Jim Roberts. Here's Phil, also has his 59 730 gas. Couple of good-looking tractors. Here's a 1957-60 John Deere garden tractor. Steve Hammer from Dakota City, Dakota City, Nebraska. Got it right. Kurt Stein of Gilmore City and Ron Stein of Woolstock, Iowa, with this 1919 4080 Minneapolis, made by the MM Threshing Machine Company. And Kurt, Ron, and Doug Stein own this 1923 Ottman Taylor gas tractor, a 3060, originated in Pipestone, Minnesota. The Steins own this one too, this 1960 Twin City 4065. And the Steins leave these tractors here year-round. We put them in the red barn down here, the red building, and we pull them out and get them fired up every year. Mark Erickson from Crosswicks, New Jersey owns this tractor. It's a 1918 Ottman Taylor 3060. And this tractor did a lot of thrashing and farming in this area. In fact, I pitched bundles into a machine powered by this tractor back in the late 40s and early 50s. And And it's got its working clothes on. This is the way it's always looked. And a good old tractor, and he comes out here every year and gets her going again. Here's a 1948 8N Ford. Driven by Mr. Nagengast.
With Mr.
Oh, with Mr. Peterson. Guys, he's got his cap down over his eyes. I couldn't see him. And here's an M John Deere owned by Eldon Johnson of Albert City, a 1952 model. And here's a little Alice Chalmers Model C. Carl Matisse of Humboldt, Iowa owns this one. From Lake City, Iowa, Mark Walter with the 1950 John Deere B.
And for Dawson Boy. Little Dawson Boy on that tractor.
Here's a 1945 Alice Chalmers C, owned by Dean Steinberg of Manson, Iowa.
Oh, that's sweet.
Carl Bellows of Newell. He had the old Minneapolis. He's got this 54 John Deere 60. Driven by Sean Fredrickson, of his grandson. Here's a Model B with a cultivator all ready to go. Orville Thayer from Rockwell, Iowa. Didn't do much cultivating lately. The shovels aren't polished up very good. And it's got a hand lift, yes. Yeah, I've run one of those in my day too. Here's a John Deere B and a 290 planter owned by Maynard Patton of Webb, Iowa. And that was a very popular corn planter. And that corn, he said that planter could go out and plant corn tomorrow. Well, we can't do it tomorrow because it's Sunday, but maybe Monday. Here's the one you don't see very often, a 520 with an LP burner owned by Gene Cedar, Meriden. Yeah, that's a dandy looking tractor. And here's another one of Gene Cedar's tractors, a 1955 Farmall 100. Farmall 100. Don Gibson of Scranton, Iowa has his 1956 Alice Chalmers WD 55. And to me, that's kind of a rare tractor. You didn't see too many of those around. The famous one was the WD 45, and this is a 55. A Minneapolis 5-star, 1955 model, owned by Everett Eel of Fremont, Nebraska. And boy, I can remember when that tractor came out. We thought that was pretty classy grill and hood design. Everett Eel also owns this 44 Massey Harris, or 1944 Massey Harris 44. Got too many 44s in there. Had that one in the tractor pull today too. And from Newell, Iowa, Ethan Lindsay with his 1948 Ford. And he painted this all by hand, used a brush. Did a real neat job. Paul Winnell owns this 1958 John Deere 630. Out of Beerford, South Dakota comes Wayne Sorensen. Excuse me. Yes, that's right. Wayne Sorensen with a 1929 McCormick Deering 2236. And here's Scott Herring of Albert City here with a 350 diesel. Luke Ayler's doing the driving. Here's one of the old famous Farm All M's, Brandon Axtell of Sir Rapids, 1949 model. Kevin Olson from here in Albert City, just down the road here about a spit, with a 1959 John Deere 530, driven by his sisters. Clayton Aronson from here in Albert City has this 1947 John Deere B. Clayton lives just about a mile from here, just across the section. Charles Kratz from Moorhead, Iowa, with a 1938 John Deere A. And folks, they just keep it coming. Here's Dan Brayfogle of Storm Lake. The whole gang in a 1947 Massey Harris Model 30. And Eldon Jonas from Pocahontas owns this 1944H Farmall. Looks to me like the driver's sleeping on the job there. Here's another one of the Jones gang. Here's Tricia and Jones and Jason Vale on this tractor. 1940 Oliver. Farmall B. I got Oliver on the brain here today. From Greenville comes Casey Shoemaker with a 1928 Farmall regular. And you notice the open steering gear box on the front. That was the sign it was the old regular tractor, and the F20 then had the enclosed gearbox. They used to call this a thumb breaker. You get your thumb in that steering wheel and it starts to spinning. You could lose it in a hurry. Here's another M, Guy Lindgren of Lorenz with a 1951 model. Wendell Fales of Grettinger with this 1936 John Deere B, and he also has a plow for it, a two-bottom 12-inch plow, but doesn't have it along today. And Kenny Chasso from Marathon, Iowa, up the road here a piece, with his 1952 Super H. And last year he had this boat sitting on Lake Albert after a 5-inch rain last year on Friday morning, and we had two lakes out here, and we called them Lake Albert. And that's an old Evan Root outboard. Classy old boat. Here's a Farmall M, a 1947 model, Warren Long of Cylinder, Iowa. Followed by an old 4-cylinder Huber, owned by Scott Strandberg of Rockwell City, Iowa, a 1926 model. And here's a cross motor case, and notice that the motor sets crossways, the engine sets crossways, and that we used to call them cross motor cases. Bruce Lenz of Manson, Iowa, the 1925 model. Larry Clausen from Marcus has this 1942 John Deere D tractor, and he's got a steel thrashing machine that goes along with it. And he's going to be using that at the Clay County Fair this year. 1935 John Deere A, owned by Chad Lambie of Webster City, Iowa. Coming up are a couple of motor graders you probably haven't seen for a while. The first one is an ACW grader, 1940 model. Justin Whittleton of Palmer owns this one. And then here's this classy old road grader owned by Bob Reinhardt of Pocahontas, a 1937 model. Call it a 54 Speed Patrol. Ted Shelby of Sac City has this 1930 John Deere D, excuse me, that's a B. He was out plowing with it here a little bit ago. And Ryan Peterson has his 37 John Deere A. And Ryan's from Palmer, Iowa. This next tractor is one you used to be able to order it out of the Sears and Roebuck catalog, and I can remember when I was a kid, couldn't wait to get the new issue of the catalog and see what those brand new David Bradley tractors look like. This is Gerhard Poppin from Palmer, Iowa, the 1938 Graham Bradley. And you could order a tractor just like you ordered underwear. Same way. Delivered a little differently, but that's the way you did it. 1939 John Deere B. Gerhardt's got this one too. Gerhardt also has this 1948 8N Ford, once again from Palmer, Iowa. Tim Jondal has this cute little John Deere. Alice Chalmers B. Think if it's a B, it's got to be a John Deere. Tim Jondal from Fonda, 1946 model. Followed by, here's a WD-45. Al Bruggeman from Harris, Iowa.
46.
Oh, that's all right. We need 200.
Got mixed up there. Mixed up. Here's the 1946 John Deere B.
200. These steps look like.
Here's Gerald Boyer from Emmitsburg with a 44H. John Thuma coming along here with his 1954 Cockshot LP fired with his 10-foot McCormick Deere grain binder, power binder, had a power takeoff on it. We used that to cut most of the oats here this year. Did a good job. Here comes Wendell Tutt from Marathon with his 1951 DC case. Steve and Rachel Rosenboom from Pomeroy with a 1960 Alice Chalmers ED40. That's a little bit of an unusual model for me anyway. ED40. Everett and Burley Amos from Greenville have this 1937 John Deere A with a single bottom plow behind it. Yeah, that's the way they used to do it, folks. Wasn't too fast, but got the job done. Here's another one of Charles Woodland's tractors, a 1941 Alice Chalmers C. And serial number is 566, so that's an early model. Here's a Super H, Farmall Super H with a live power takeoff in a TA. You don't see those very often. Ken Postman of Dune, Iowa. Here's Carl Lynn's over 1917 Minneapolis Universal. Moline Universal, they'd call it. It's 8 horsepower on the drawbar and 16 on the belt. Believe it or not, you're supposed to farm with that. Mick Sunblad at the wheel there. Here's this old Alice standard tread. Justin Woodland with this one, a Minneapolis or a Alice Chalmers U tractor. Continental engine in it. Here comes Colin Johnson's B. Well, I believe that's Eldon's tractor on the baler, but here's a John Deere stationary baler. Park that thing out by the straw stack or haystack and belt up, and away you go. Tied with wire. Here's Jake Hinkle from Aurelia, Iowa, a homemade tractor called a Coupe Det, and he's got a Cub Cadet engine in that thing. Dual wheels, how about that?
where this come out? I don't know.
Here's a Gibson garden tractor, Kendall Hinkle from Aurelia. And the same deal, another Gibson. Hey, that's it, folks. There's no more coming than I can see. Thank you so much for your day. Stick around. We got some really dandy entertainment tonight.
The Albert City Threshermen and Collectors Show has one of the largest participations of horsepower of any show around. A large number of horses arrive each year with their owners to help thresh, pull wagons, provide power for a threshing machine, or to demonstrate with horse-drawn machinery. The threshing machines are pulled to a designated spot. After checking it over thoroughly, the machine and men are ready to demonstrate. The threshing machine is known officially as a separator, for that is exactly what it does. It separates the oats from the straw. Once the steam is up and the flat belt is singing and the machinery is humming, bundles are thrown into the machine. The threshing begins.
Feels like it.